Story told in third person, narrated by Uncle Drew. They say the camera never lies. But that ain't always true. Sometimes, it tells you something you shouldn't see. Something not meant for human eyes. This story. It ain't about shadows or chains or whispers in the attic. It's about AM. And a basement where reality bends. Now sit back, let me tell why all what happened to Gary Doyle. Night guard A. A man who didn't believe in ghosts. Until himself on a camera Gary Doyle, the night. Gary was a simple man. Mid-40s. Divorced. Lived alone in a quiet basement suite just 2 blocks from St. Odette Medical Center. He didn't need much from life, just coffee, a quiet shift, and so when the hospital offered him the graveyard shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., he figured. No patients. No staff. Just halls full of echoes, and a desk WI. But Gary didn't know about Wing B. And he sure as hell didn't know what was waiting in the basement. Wing B, the CL St. Odette, had a dark little secret. An old wing tucked. Used to be a psychiatric unit. They called it W. But it burned. 2 orderlies died. 1 patient disappeared. They NA. Now it just sat there. Cold. Empty. Forgotten. Except the basement. Well, that part never really stayed quiet. The glitch. It was Gary's third night on the job. He was sitting in the security room, watching the monitors like always. One eye on the screen, the other on his coffee. Most of the cameras showed nothing. Dim halls. Closed doors. Flickering lights. But then monitor 9 blinked to life. That feed had been dead for years. It was the camera facing the elevator in Wing B. Gary frowned. The screen flickered. Static. Then the elevator doors opened. And standing inside, was a man. The man in the elevator. At first, Gary thought it was an old recording. But the timestamp showed live feed. And the man standing in that elevator. He looked just like Gary. Same build. Same uniform. Same bald spot. Gary leaned in. The man turned slowly. And stared straight into the camera. Straight into Gary. The face was his. But wrong. Stretched. Pale. Too smooth. Eyes just a little too black. Smile like it had been carved there with a knife. Gary's coffee slipped from his hand and spilled across the desk. Rewind, nothing there. Gary hit rewind. Backed the footage up 60 seconds. Nothing. The camera went dark again. Like it had never been on. He checked the system log. No motion trigger. No heat signature. No power surge. The elevator itself still shut off. Still sealed behind steel doors and caution tape. He stared at the screen for a long time, heart hammering in his chest. That thing in the elevator. It wasn't just a reflection. It was watching him. The hallway to Wing B. Gary had to check. Something in his bones told him not to. But curiosity, that's the real killer. He grabbed his flashlight and walked the long hall toward Wing B. The corridor was darker than usual. The air, colder. Every step echoed. Every light buzzed. At the end of the hall, the elevator doors stood still and silent. Sealed. Dead. Or so he thought. Then he saw it. A clipboard lying on the floor in front of the doors. The clipboard. Gary bent down. It was a sign-in log. A real one. Official hospital forms. Yellowed paper. Black ink. Only 3 names on it. 2 scratched out. And the third one. Gary Doyle, signed in, 3:44 a.m. Status, in progress. Location, basement level. Gary stared at it. He hadn't signed anything. He hadn't been near this place tonight. And yet, the ink looked fresh. Still wet. Like someone had just written it. The elevator dings. He stood up. And that S when he heard it. Ding. The elevator. The damn elevator dinged. Gary stumbled back as the doors creaked open. Groaning like they hadn't moved in 20 years. Inside darkness. But not empty darkness. This was the kind that breathed. He raised his flashlight. And saw something written on the dusty mirror in the back wall. Letters formed in condensation, like breath on glass. It said, "Welcome back." Gary didn't know why he stepped in. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was that damn whisper in his mind saying, "Just a quick look. Prove it's nothing." But the second he crossed the elevator threshold, everything changed. Into the dark. The elevator didn't hum. Didn't buzz. It shivered. Like a thing alive, holding its breath. Gary's flashlight flickered as the doors groaned closed behind him. And for a split second, he saw it again. That reflection. In the mirror at the back of the car. But it wasn't moving with him. It stood still. Smiling. While Gary reached out, breathing heavy. He blinked. And when he opened his eyes, he was gone. The descent. The buttons on the panel didn't light up. Except one. B. Basement. Already pressed. The elevator lurched and dropped. Not fast. Not slow. But with that unnatural smoothness that made your stomach twist. No floor numbers lit up. No sounds, no music. Only that heavy silence. The kind that knows your name. The basement that shouldn't be there. When the doors opened, Gary knew this wasn't the hospital basement. Not really. The hallway looked the same. But it felt wrong. The walls were damp. The lights flickered like candlelight. And the smell. Rotting paper. Burned hair. And something wet. He stepped out, 1 foot at a time. The doors closed behind him. No button. No panel. No going back. The gurney. The hallway stretched far. Too far. Like it had no end. And halfway down, Gary saw something. A gurney, tipped sideways. One of the wheels still spinning slowly. Next to it, a trail of smeared footprints. Leading around the corner. Bare feet. But big. Too big. And beside them, drag marks. Like someone, or something, was pulled. The room with his name. He followed the trail. Slowly. Heart hammering in his throat. Until he reached a metal door. Paint peeling. Rust bleeding down the frame. And there, nailed to the center, a wooden nameplate. Burned into it, Doyle, G. Patient 273, admitted, 3:44 a.m. Status, still observed. Gary stepped back. What the hell is this? The doorknob turned. On its own. He stared at it. Not moving. Not breathing. Then, the door creaked open. The mirror room. Inside was a single chair. And a mirror mounted across from it. Gary stepped in, flashlight shaking. There was no dust. No dirt. The room was clean. Too clean. He looked into the mirror. And there he was. But his reflection didn't move. It just stared. Unblinking. Head tilted, ever so slightly. Then it smiled. And reached forward. But Gary didn't. He stood frozen. Because the reflection wasn't copying him anymore. It was doing something else. Something new. Let me take it from here. The figure in the mirror leaned forward, pressing both palms against the glass. Its mouth opened. But no sound came out. Only the soft scrape of breath against the mirror. And a whisper, so faint it felt like it came from inside Gary's skull, "Let me take it from here." Then crack. A hairline fracture split across the mirror. Another. And another. Until the whole thing shattered. Outward. Glass rained toward Gary. He stumbled back. But the room had changed. Behind him now. No door. Just white walls. And footsteps, slow and steady. Coming toward him. Gary stood in the middle of a room that didn't exist on any blueprint. White walls. No door. No sound. Only the crunch of broken glass beneath his boots, and that feeling. That something was breathing the same air as him, just behind the veil. His heart pounded so loud it felt like it would break through his ribs. He spun around, flashlight in hand, searching. For what, he didn't know. Maybe a way out. Maybe an explanation. Or maybe, deep down, he already knew there was no way out at all. The voice behind the skin. From the wall behind him came a voice. But not from a speaker. It was like the wall itself breathed the words, "You've been observed, Mr. Doyle. And we've decided." A pause. A crack appeared in the surface, widening slowly. Like skin splitting to reveal what's underneath. "We prefer the other one." Gary stepped back, bumping into the shattered mirror frame. And from the wall. He walked out. Or something that looked like him. Same height. Same uniform. Same face. But the eyes. They weren't his. Too wide. Too wet. Too knowing. The thing smiled. Not like a person. Like a thing trying to remember how smiles work. A copy that didn't blink. Gary tried to speak, but his mouth wouldn't open. He tried to move, but his legs wouldn't lift. The other Gary walked toward him. Mirror Gary. Basement Gary. Whatever the hell it was. It raised its hand and touched his face gently. Like a child touching something fragile for the first time. Then it whispered, mouth never quite matching the words, "You've done your part. I'll do the rest now." And Gary felt something inside him slide. Like a chair scraping across a stone floor. Something moving from where it belonged, to somewhere it shouldn't go. The return. They found him the next morning. Slumped in the security room, eyes open, coffee spilled across his lap. Breathing. Heart beating. Alive. But something about him had changed. He didn't talk for 3 days. When he finally did, he just said, "I'm fine." Must be nodded off. But he wasn't fine. Not really. His co-workers said he started watching the monitors too much. Even when they were off. Even when there was nothing on them. Sometimes he'd stare into a blank screen for hours. And then smile. The tape. 3 weeks later, the hospital installed a new security system. One of the IT guys was reviewing old footage and stumbled on something strange. A clip, timestamped 3:44 a.m. Camera 9. Wing B elevator. The feed came to life. The elevator opened. And out walked Gary. Except, there was already a Gary sitting in the security room. Two of him. One on camera. One at the desk. The Gary on the screen turned. Looked directly into the lens. And smiled. Then the feed cut to black. The last detail. Uncle Drew leans in close now, almost whispering. Now listen. Here's the part nobody ever put together. The real Gary, the one who walked into that basement. He never came back. Whatever's walking around now. Might look like him. Might sound like him. But there's something behind those eyes. Something watching. Waiting. And sometimes when the lights flicker at St. Odette Medical. The elevator in Wing B dings. Even though it's been out of service for 20 years. And the staff say. If you're alone, and you pass by at the wrong time. You might just catch a glimpse of him. Staring at you. From inside the mirror.